The New Orleans Saints just finalized their head coach deal to make Kellen Moore the offensive coordinator for the Eagles this season, their head coach of the future, and Brandon Staley is going to be their defensive coordinator. And as a Chargers fan, I'm going to tell you why Saints fans should not be excited about this. First, I want to talk about the quarterback specifically because people want to say that this season Herbert had a down year for his career, when in reality, in 2023 under Kellen Moore, he actually had the worst statistical season of his career. Passing the ball this season, Herbert had 3,870 pass yards, 23 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, 65.9% completion percentage, and a 64.8 quarterback rating. And then running the ball this season, he had the most rush yards in his career, 306 yards, 2 touchdowns. His also highest passer rating in his career was this season at 101.7 passer rating. Now, last season under Kellen Moore in 2023, he had the lowest amount of passing yards in his career, 3,135, 20 touchdowns, also the lowest in his career, and 7 interceptions, so the lowest and worst ratio in his career, and a 93.2 passer rating, which was tied for the lowest in his career, and a 64.8 quarterback rating. Last season, running the ball, Herbert did have one more touchdown, but he had less rushing yards with 228 yards. He also missed 4 games due to injury, but their team record last season was 5-12. Now let's talk about Jalen Hurts' statistics, passing and running the ball 2023 versus 2024. In 2023, passing the ball, he had 3,858 passing yards, 23 touchdowns to 15 interceptions, so he did throw a lot more picks, but this season he had 2,903 passing yards, 18 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, so the interceptions improved, but down in yards and touchdowns for Jalen Hurts. Now, running the ball has actually been pretty much the same for Jalen Hurts this year compared to last year. He had 605 yards in 2023 and 15 touchdowns. Compared to this season, he had 630 yards and 14 touchdowns. Now, we all know how stacked the offense was this season in Philadelphia. Obviously, Jalen Hurts passing the ball to guys like Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, and then they had Jahan Dotson, who was a pretty good wide receiver 3, and then obviously we know the type of season that Saquon Barkley had, and having the offensive line that the Eagles have, and a really good tight end in Dallas Goedert. But I want to go back to Justin Herbert now, 2023 to 2024. If you look at the weapons that he had last season versus this season, it's not even comparable. The wide receivers that Herbert was throwing to, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Joshua Palmer, and then Austin Eckler was the running back. And mind you, Quentin Johnston was the wide receiver 4 for the Chargers last year. With this season, obviously we've seen Ladd McConkey emerge as the wide receiver 1 as the season went on, and he's been a very good rookie for the Chargers this season. Quentin Johnston was the wide receiver 2, and we obviously know that he is not wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 capable because he's just not a good player. And then J.K. Dobbins obviously had a good season with the Chargers because they were a run-first offense this season. And then the tight end position is definitely an area of weakness for the Chargers, and Will Dissly was their number 1 tight end. Now let's look at the situation that Kellen Moore will be going into as the next head coach of the New Orleans Saints. Starting off with their roster, this will obviously be the least talented roster that Kellen Moore has ever worked with. If you compare it to going all the way back to the Dallas Cowboys before he was with the Chargers, and the Chargers compared to the Philadelphia Eagles. The Saints roster quarterback position consists of Derek Carr, Jake Haener, and Spencer Rattler. Obviously, none of these 3 guys are even close to the caliber of players as Justin Herbert or Jalen Hurts. Their running back is Alvin Kamara. Obviously, he's still a very good running back in this league, but not Saquon Barkley. Their wide receivers consist of Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Easily the worst wide receiver group he has worked with so far. And then their tight ends are Juwan Johnson, Foster Moreau, and Taysom Hill. The Saints also have the worst cap space in the NFL with negative $54.1 million, so obviously they're going to have to make some cuts if they're going to make any improvements to their roster this season, and I don't know if I see that happening. I think they're still going to have one of the worst rosters in the league. And the last point I want to bring up is the Brandon Staley defense that Saints fans are going to have to deal with now. The 49ers defense this season, which actually was not terrible. They were the 8th total defense, but their record this season was 6-11, worst in their division, and obviously their defense was not nearly as good as anyone thought they would be. The Chargers in 2023 under Brandon Staley were the 24th ranked total defense, in 2022 the 21st ranked total defense, and in 2021 the 29th ranked total defense. And compare that to the Chargers defense this year with comparatively the same players, at least the same core of players, they were the number 1 ranked total defense under Jesse Minter in his first season in 2024.